Boom, and we are live with another episode of the Brown Water Banter podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Cates.
That's right. It is Joey Cates. And we got a great show for you. We've been off for a little while. We've been down in Disney World and the Peter Anderson Festival. Well, that was a whirlwind of an experience.
We need a break.
We'll talk about it. But in the studio with us, we have Angela Mallette. She's going to be talking to us about her nonprofit, End It for Good, and drug policy today, right? Did I get that right?
You got it right.
All right, good. We're coming off of today's the November the 9th, right? Yeah, yesterday was the 8th and was election day in the United States of America. And a little bit to talk about there. Super proud of Mikey Zell coming out with the win.
Yep.
And our boy Calvin
Taylor.
Yep.
He took the W.
That's right. He got the W. That's right. Super proud. So congratulations to both of those guys. Congratulations to everybody that ran. And that ran a well campaign. I know that takes a lot of work, hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. So even those people who didn't get in, man, I do respect putting yourself out there like that and running. And it's a
Hey, congratulations to everybody who voted. Way to be an American.
Yeah.
Way to exercise your right.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
But before we jump into all that, let's thank the sponsors, the American sponsors who keep the light on through capitalism here on the show. Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles. If you're looking for a great local dentist, he's right over here on Washington Avenue in Ocean Springs. Check him out on the socials. He's on Facebook and Instagram at Southern Magnolia Smiles, or you can jump over to his regular website at southernmagnoliasmiles.com. Keep your mouth clean, man. Go make that appointment. If you've never been, there's nothing to be afraid of. He's a great dude, easy to get along with, easy to talk to, and he's got a killer staff over there. So give him a call, book the appointment, 228-215-1202. Our buddy Jesse, I got to call Jesse this week again.
Yeah, we got to get a commercial.
We got to get a commercial made. So yeah, he's not just a sponsor. We use him. Hilltree Marketing. If you need a website built for any reason, keep saying that, for any reason. Maybe you're a small business, but maybe you're not. Maybe you make pottery at home and you want to sell it online. HilltreeMarketing.com. They're a local company. Go check them out. They've worked with a lot of local brands that you're familiar with, including us. So give them a shout. Tell them that you heard about them here on the show. And he's not going to let you down, man. He does photography, videography, builds the whole website. He's very professional. He'll take your game to the next level. And I do have Joey, the chair that's slowly sinking down. So you'll see me continue to do this for the show.
Yeah. For once, I'm taller than you.
Yeah, right. Sea to Swamp, our good buddy Rocky, man. Rocky put us in Coastal Angler, Mississippi Magazine, and the Alabama edition, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he's running Sea to Swamp over there, Goshen Van Cleve Road. If you need any outdoor apparel, tackle, fishing gear, he's got you completely covered. And like I just mentioned, he runs Mississippi Coastal Angler Magazine, the Mississippi edition, and just recently took over the Alabama edition. So if you see that out and about, grab you a copy. They got some killer articles in there. Joey and I have an ad in there as well, and we really appreciate Rocky for all his support. Glad to be working with him. And then last but definitely not least, we've changed it up. We're going back to Taylor and Cox Law Firm as the sponsor because the race is over. Like we mentioned,
winners win.
Yeah, winners win. So Calvin took it home. We're gonna have to get him back in here at some point once he's had a little time to experience what it's like and talk to him about that and how he felt.
I imagine his calendar might be full for the next few days.
I think it's probably going to be a little busy. Yeah. So we'll give that some time, but we'll get him back in here to talk to us. But congratulations once again to him and to Ezo. Man, I hope the internet's not going to do this to us again. It looks like we got this little warning label here, but anyway, let's keep it going and we'll see what happens. So Angela, what's up? We've who do we have on from In It for Good? It was your CEO that was on last time.
Yeah, I think you guys had Brett for our Biloxi event.
Okay,
a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Wow, time flies when you're having fun, right?
It seems like that was just a few months ago.
It does.
It was a long time ago.
To Joey and I as well. But tell us real quick, like give people that didn't hear that episode a brief, just like synopsis of what End It for Good is and what you all stand for.
Yeah. So here's our elevator.
Right.
End It for Good is a Mississippi-based nonprofit, and we do community education and we work on drug policy reform. So that looks like a couple of things. It looks like, for me, a lot of outreach and advocacy work. So I spend a lot of time on the road traveling all over our state. So I am from everywhere from South Haven to Tupelo. Monday I was in Natchez, a lot of time in Jackson, just meeting people and talking with leaders around Mississippi about how our drug policies are affecting their communities.
Right.
So, sometimes we're talking about, what addiction is looking like in the families in these communities. Sometimes we're talking about what incarceration is looking like and the struggle that's coming out of that. So, that's what I do. Our organization, End It for Good, like we work on drug policy reform, trying to help think about how we can switch our drug policies that really just kind of promote more thriving and restoration rather than just this constant, like, it seems like we're always hearing some problem that is criminal justice related,
Right.
or sometimes it's a lack of services for mental health issues. We want to help people understand that if you shift our resources, and you put it more over here on that, like, let's help people when they're struggling, rather than just all in the enforcement and punishment side, we might see some different outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's hard though, I think, for a lot of people to understand, right?
Yeah.
Because people want to punish people that it maybe not just so the addicted person, but when they commit a crime that may be drug related, even if that crime is like minor possession, right?
Yeah.
People are kind of trained to think that
Throw them in jail.
You did something wrong, you need to go to jail. And that's probably, I would think, 90% of what you have to deal with is to try to change that mindset, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's easier than others, because nowadays it's rare to find someone in Mississippi or anywhere in the country for that matter who's not been personally affected by substance use somehow, whether that's themselves have struggled with it, or someone in their family, maybe a brother, an uncle, a cousin. We all know someone, right? And so because it has just grown and everyone's experienced it, it's a lot easier to have conversations. But
Right.
Back to what you said about that's a hard thing to do, because most of the time when a crime is committed, like a drug-related crime, especially if there's like a property crime involved, there has to be accountability for that, right? Like I want, if someone steals my stuff, I want them to be accountable, right? So we're not saying that should be no accountability. We're saying that, like, hey, there are some more innovative ways that you can make sure that people are accountable, plus they're getting the help that they need to get better.
Yeah, because I mean, you can look at like recidivism rates for the current way things are treated, and I don't think it's doing the greatest job of keeping people out of prison, right? Or from
No, I think you're just going right back in there.
I know. We should have probably scooted that down a little bit.
I'm gonna smooth it right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
there we go.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, I'm doing this.
Can you see me?
I can see you fine.
I look better than Jared. Anyway.
Look, my chair continues to keep this going down. It's like, anyway.
What's it waiting for?
So
What's the waiting for?
If anybody's watching, they're like, "What is this girl doing?" I'm going up and down. It's just because I'm trying to see Jared's eyes.
We should have moved that down a little bit. But no, you're right. So what y'all put on a what would you call it? That event that we had in Pascagoula, we talked about it the last time.
Yeah, so you came to the one that we had in Pascagoula,
yes.
And then we hosted another in Biloxi. We've done them in about 30 cities around the state. Our next one will be in Natchez on December 1st. So we call them community discussions.
There you go.
And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We invite everybody who might be connected to the issue of drugs, whether that's prescribing them, treating people who have challenges with them, enforcing our drug law. So when I go into a community, the first people I'm going to go sit down with is law enforcement and the judges and the prosecutors, because they are literally the front line of this issue. And I just, want to have conversations like, do you think that the way that this is working right now is giving us the best results for our investment? And, we just kind of start the conversation there. And so we have these events, and, we provide a meal. So best ideas, we believe that the best ideas are shared over a meal.
Absolutely.
And we've been doing that for thousands of years. So you got to make sure that food
breaking
is involved.
bread.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we got some bread we're going to break over here too, for sure.
So we sit down and we have dinner together. We do a presentation. Jared, you saw it.
Yeah.
And we kind of break down when we think about drugs and drug-related crime or harm that comes from drugs, we break that down. Like, what does that really look like? And, for all of us, we're all 80s babies, I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
Just say no.
Absolutely. Besides that one over there.
Besides that one over there.
Yeah.
She's going to be the one that fixes all the problems
Absolutely.
we create.
Her
That's
generation.
good.
Yeah, we hope, right?
Yeah, so we all saw the egg in the frying pan, and we saw
Yep.
Dare.
Get your brain on drugs.
Right. And it was like, if you do this, then you're gonna just go crazy. I remember also seeing on TV these commercials of like a rat in a cage.
Mhm.
Yes.
And they drink the water bottle. And if this shows the rat just compulsively going over to the drugged water bottle that had like heroin or cocaine in it. And it just does it over and over until it kills itself. And so that's what we were taught as
Right.
kids. Well, then we got a little older, and we saw that maybe that wasn't the whole story. Right. So there were people who did use substances that they didn't spontaneously combust.
Right.
Some people did problematically use them. Right. And struggle with that. But most people, you did it in high school or you did it in college, and then you just stopped and you moved on. And if you look at data across, and this is in Mississippi, this is across the country, if you look at data, you see that 90% of the people in America who use substances do so non-problematically.
Mm-hmm.
They do so under the care of a doctor. They do so while they're going through a period of time. Maybe they need pain relief. Maybe they need emotional help with mental health issues. But then they stop and they move on because things get better. But we have this 10% of people who do develop problematic substance use and need to go to treatment. And sometimes that turns into chaotic substance use where they're getting in trouble and getting arrested. Well, we focus all of our efforts and all of our resources around this 10%, the worst cases. And the stories that we tell, whether it's in movies or it's on, 60 Minutes, the stories that we tell are the ones of all of the tragedy.
Right.
And so we base our laws around that.
Correct.
And I think what has happened over, the last 5 decades since we started the war on drugs, you could even look back to the last 100 years when it really started with the Harrison Narcotics Act in 1914. If you look at all of that, we've been trying to just focus on this one goal of eradicating substances from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And when in reality, that's not really possible to do. It is part of the human psyche to try to relieve pain and suffering. So what I think, and what lots of other people seem to think, is that maybe we're focusing on the wrong problem rather than focusing on how do we eradicate these things. It's like, how do you help people get through whatever it is that they're struggling with?
Yeah. And mental health is huge these days. I guess a lot of people got away from mental health, or we didn't have enough research or science behind mental health previous years before. I guess what I'm trying to say is, out of that 10%, what keeps the people coming back and what doesn't? Like how many? Yeah, what's the difference between the people who go 100% off of drugs, and then what's the ones who you actually reach and come back off of it?
Yeah, well, I think the distinction is often trauma.
Right.
Think about our buddies that we went to high school with. Justin and I went to the same high school. We all were friends with the same people. You guys went to St. Martin, which is not very far.
Right down the road.
Yep.
Right. So think about our peer groups.
Okay.
And though, we all did the same stuff. We all partied, or none of us are angels here.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Right. But think about the ones who were able to just kind of move on from that. And then the ones who kind of got stuck. Right. And maybe they stayed stuck for a little while. Maybe they're still stuck there.
Right.
Research shows, and through my own experience of having to walk through addiction and then navigate my way out of it, I've seen that the people who get stuck there are the ones who are hurt. The ones who've experienced trauma somewhere, or maybe it doesn't even have to be quote unquote what we would label as trauma,
right?
Because that's a very dramatic word. But maybe it's just something that happened to them that they weren't able to move past, or they weren't able to process on their own. So they look for something to alleviate that internal pain and that internal suffering. And sometimes it's pornography, sometimes it's gambling, sometimes it's alcohol,
all kinds of vices.
Sometimes it's heroin, sometimes it's working too much. I know quite a few extremely successful executives who, like, working and productivity is their coping mechanism from a whole bunch of shit that
And
they don't know how to
and
deal
they can't
with.
take a break.
Yeah.
They just do it 24/7.
Right. So it is very common that this happens, and the ones, unfortunately, who have these experiences and now they're coping, they're looking for some way to help them just navigate this, and they get stuck there sometimes because of criminal justice involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they get stuck there because of lack of resources. They don't know where to go for help, or they're scared, like, if I ask for help, am I gonna lose my job?
Right.
If I ask for help, who's gonna pay the bills for my kids and
Right.
my wife? So we've like created this environment where, it's not easy to ask for help, and it's not easy to access the resources when you need to. And even saying, Jared, I'm addicted to these pain pills, like, even admitting that is like admitting that you're a criminal.
Right.
So you have to be able to say,
the stigma that goes along
I'm
with
committing
that,
a crime too. And what I would love to see is, I hope that the next generation of kids, or young adults who go through this, like, I hope that we get to a place where they don't have to feel afraid to ask for help, and that they just really understand the truth about mental health. So.
And are y'all working with large businesses and stuff like that to do that? Because I know with like the school district and probably with the hospital as well, we have a policy. It's a no ask, no tell policy where we go in, hey, I need help. They'll help us, blah, blah, blah. They won't release any names or anything like that. You might have to sit out of work for a week, do your whatever you need to do to get better, and then come back. You know what I'm saying? Are y'all working in the same businesses?
No, we don't work with any private businesses, to implement work policies like that. Although I think they're wonderful ideas, and I'd love to see all of them. I'd love to see schools, private businesses be able to do that. We work a lot with our legislature, having conversations, advocating for policies that will help put resources into mental health and access to treatment, rather than all into the enforcement and the incarceration basket. We still need those things, right? We still need law enforcement. We still need our judicial system, right? Those things are really important, but we really need to think about building out, like, our mental health resources in our state.
At the town hall that y'all had in Pascagoula, I was impressed with the fact that y'all had so many different stakeholders there. So from the law enforcement side to the drug court, judges, drug court,
staff,
yeah, exactly, to parents, to graduates of the drug court, to prosecutors. I mean, it was very much mayors were there,
we had
actual
2
law enforcement
legislators there.
Yeah,
the whole scene.
There to all kind of in a safe space, like you're saying, be able to talk and express opinions or ideas that maybe aren't the norm right now, and nobody's really advocating, because I think a lot of times this conversation people can be like, oh, so what are you just saying, like everybody should be able to do drugs and there's no laws and it's the hippie commune, and it's peace, love, and we know that's not true, and that's not what you're saying. That's not what I'm hearing you say, and having spoke with your group there at the town hall, I know that's not y'all's message.
But it can be construed that way.
Correct.
Especially,
yes.
I'm always worried that coming from me that could be the message, right? Because I am a person in recovery, and I did have this, really not nice experience with pain medication, and I've now been in recovery for almost 7 years. But it's real easy to make that conclusion. Oh, well, of course she wants to decriminalize drug use, right? She was an addict at one point in time. And so let me just say that nothing could be further from the truth. I don't want people to use drugs, because that shit gets ugly. Just take it from me. If you want to hear some stories, call me. I'll share them with you. It's not fun. And just like I was talking about earlier, like, my story was a product of having some really tough life experiences that I didn't have the tools to deal with at the time. didn't have the tools to deal with them, didn't know how to deal with them, was kind of arrogant too, and thought, oh, addiction, like that's not going to happen for me. I just graduated college. I got the world on my shoulders.
Right. You had finished what?
Yeah, I was superwoman. Yeah, civil engineering.
Civil engineering. Yeah, yeah.
But you know, it did. Life happens, and sometimes we don't have or understand how to walk out of it. So anyway, I'm never advocating for people to use drugs. I know the harm that they can cause, but I do not believe that people should be incarcerated and criminalized because of it. Mm-hmm. I think there are better alternatives out there for our state and for our communities. And I really want to continue to have these conversations in Mississippi because we're at the top of some not great lists when it comes to incarceration.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it was just released about 3 weeks ago that Mississippi is now the number 1 incarcerator of people in the world.
Like in the world. Like end of sentence.
In the world?
In the world.
Like the whole world.
Like whole world.
I think that's per capita though, right? Correct? Like citizens or population of the state versus how many are incarcerated, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So technically number of people, like obviously places like Texas and California have more people incarcerated than us, but per capita, Mississippi has 1,000, I think it's 1,000, it's either 1,097 or 1,084 people per capita. I'll have to pull it up on my phone.
Yeah. Y'all shared that at that meeting. The actual number.
The one that you were at, Jared, at that time, Mississippi was number 2.
Okay.
Louisiana was ahead of us.
So we beat them.
And so the United States incarcerates far more people than any other developed country in the world, right? And outside of North Korea, like a dictatorship.
I was going to ask. Even North Korea?
Yeah, outside of North Korea.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the United States does. And at the top of the states in the United States who incarcerate people, Mississippi is now number 1. Louisiana has made some significant reforms over the past couple of years, and their incarceration rates are going down. So we took that top spot. And so my question is, like, where's all this money coming from? Right? Where's all the
to incarcerate people? You mean taxpayers,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We're paying for it.
We're paying for it, and is that the most fiscally responsible thing to do?
No.
Yeah, and
3 hots and a cot.
Wes commented earlier. She just said you're the best. I'll read that comment off. But Lance just said, Suckmill said that same thing that y'all are touching on right now is that drug reform would create empty jail cells, which is the biggest issue because it's all about the money. And it's not even just that, which is a big part of it. But you also got to think, do you remember, it's probably been maybe 10 years ago, you would see police cars, new ones that would go by, and on the side of it, would say,
bought by drug money or something like that.
This vehicle bought by drug money. And it's a large part of a lot, I feel like, police departments' budgets is seizures from drug money, you know?
I think so too.
So that would be, you know, if they would have, where would that money come from? Like to supplement, right?
And you know,
which doesn't justify it. I'm definitely not saying that.
And I don't know, you know, I don't know that law enforcement agencies are like in malice in that. I think it's just the way that
it is
that they have existed,
correct.
And the way that they've done business, and the way that they've, you know, bought the resources that they think that they need. What's really interesting to me, I don't know if you guys have ever like looked or written any kind of federal grants, but if you go look at grants.gov, right, it's this whole like massive clearinghouse of all federal grants that are available. So grants to help, you know, build new oyster reefs, like they're all listed there. Grants that are there to do beautification projects with MDOT, that they're on there.
Struggling podcast.
I was going to say, you don't see these podcasts.
You know, so there might be some like rural communication strategy.
Yeah. Honestly, that is true. Like you could find something.
We need a struggling podcast.
Yeah. I saw, you know, there are my aunt, she's she does pottery and she makes soaps and like the goat milk soap. She's all into that thing.
Yeah,
and,
she's spiritual, earthy.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's the coolest person I know. Anyway, so she was telling me the other day that they have like these grants available for what are they called? Like farms, like small farms that are doing field to table.
Yes, that sounds right.
Farm to table.
Farm to
There we
table.
go. That's the phrase. Anyway, so you could go peruse grants.gov and find all kind of cool things. And what you will find is lots, if you search, you know, opioids or search drug enforcement, you see that there's like tons of money available from our federal government to enhance drug enforcement all across the country. And so the way that you qualify for these is that you go in your community and you make lots of arrests, right? So it's like this perpetuating system.
Right.
It's money to address the drug issue, but you got to get it by keeping your arrest numbers up. Am I
so
making
it's kind of
sense?
like the government, where if you don't spend it, you don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's incentivized inside of the grant
Yes.
to arrest more people.
Right.
It's a part of the thing.
And so, like, I get it. Like, you got to keep your employees, so you want to write the grants and get the money. And but if it is incentivized by jacking up arrests, somehow that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because are we arresting people just to meet that number, or are we like trying to help them? Is that increasing public safety in our community?
Right. To me, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because when you think of drug abusers or drug users, you think of the guy or the girl underneath the bridge who's just been whacked out of his mind or her mind for so long. You don't think of, it happens to brothers, sisters, mothers all over the place. And when you think about that, you think about, most people, it's that guy, not you know what I'm saying, that's going through this. So when they go, oh, the guy under the bridge is going to jail, we don't care about that. But somebody's sister, it hits a little different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or mothers being taken away from their children. So the children have to suffer as well, right? I mean, we've had Sheriff Mike Ezel on the show, and mentioned him at the beginning of the show as well. And you see things in the news nowadays about defund the police and being soft on crime, and all the major cities, the crime rate's going up now. So it definitely is a balance between enforcing the law, because I don't think you're not saying don't arrest these people, or that just strictly because you are arresting someone that is in and of itself wrong, right? Because if they committed a crime, you should be arrested. The thing I think what you're saying is, and where the focus should be, is that once that arrest happens, how then do we treat this person, right? Should it be as a criminal and a criminal only, or should it be as a broken human, right? Maybe who needs some type of rehabilitation to keep them off of that path, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. But I am also saying that I don't think that all of the drug possession charges that we give out are helping like we think that they should.
Right.
I am in favor of decriminalizing drug possession, but also wrapping around services around people who are struggling with drug issues. Kind of like what Portugal does.
Yeah.
So in Portugal in 2001, they had a heroin addiction crisis that was just terrible. It's like 5 times the rate of what the United States is now. And so to kind of give you some perspective on that for those listening, last year in our country, 100,000 people died of fentanyl overdose or of drug overdoses, many of them from fentanyl.
Now, yes.
Right. And so in Mississippi, in the last 3 years, we have seen a 183% increase in drug overdose deaths. Right. So this is for real. Like
more,
is that fentanyl?
It is a current event.
Is it mostly fentanyl?
Probably.
Yes, mostly fentanyl.
Wasn't it even during the height of the pandemic? Do you know the stat that more people were dying from drug overdoses than were from COVID? I'm pretty sure I heard
that stat, but it would not surprise me.
I'm pretty sure.
People sit at home all day, get stir crazy. So what are you going to do?
So
it's a big problem, is what we're getting at. Right?
Where was that at?
Portugal.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Yeah. So Portugal had like this horrible heroin addiction crisis going on, and their prime minister was just like, "Whoa, y'all, we cannot continue like this. Our economy cannot sustain this. So what are we going to do?" And so he brought together this panel of addiction professionals, of scientists, of criminal justice professionals, doctors, and they were like, "Okay, so the best thing to do is decriminalize possession of substances. So it's still illegal to manufacture them, to sell them, to you can't just buy them on the street." But what they did is they decriminalized the possession of it. So now when someone's pulled over, right, and they have a substance in their car, or they're stopped somewhere and they've got, cocaine on them or illegal pills, rather than giving them a felony and sending them through the system as usual, like they go and sit down and they are assessed by a panel of people. And they're like, okay, what's going on here? Are you recreationally using? Is this like like you're having a wild weekend kind of
Right.
thing, but you got the kids and the job at home and you're okay? Or is this something like problematic where we need to get you into treatment?
Yeah.
And so
didn't Oregon, Washington, haven't they jumped on that same boat?
They did it. So Portugal, they did it first in 2001. It's now been over 20 years. And if you look at what it looks like in that country now, their addiction rates are down by 60%, like 60. That's huge. Their injection drug use rates are down by 70%, and their drug-related crimes, property crimes, prostitution, all those things that come along with it, they're all massively down, right? Because it's now when your focus is like, what's the real problem that you're using, and how can we help you? Right? You have an opportunity for resolution.
It sounds like they're trying to treat the problem and not the symptom, with the symptom being the use of the drug, whatever the drug may be, right? It's what's wrong with you, the mental health side of it.
The mental health side of it.
You brought up earlier about the mouse in the cage that drank the water with the cocaine in it and would only go to that over food and water. I heard that story forever and ever and ever, and never heard like the other part of that. Have you ever heard the other part of that story?
Oh, yeah. So the other part of the story is Rat Park.
Yes. I'd never heard that as many times as I
Smashing Pumpkins wrote a song about it.
Did they really?
Despite all my rage,
I'm still just a rat in a cage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A little different. What Joey's talking about. But yeah, tell the people that may not have heard about Rat Park.
Oh, Rat Park. So there's this awesome man in Canada named Dr. Bruce Alexander, and he's a researcher. And so before he became a researcher, he was right out of med school. He was assigned to work in a clinic where he had to work with the chronically homeless and chronically drug-using population. I think they were giving out, maybe it was a methadone clinic back in the 70s. And he saw like something totally different than this story he had seen about addiction as he was growing up.
Right.
Girl, was that funny?
Yeah.
Was that funny?
It's a little off camera action going on over there. Our daughter's playing some kind of game on the other.
That must be a good game.
Yeah. Keep going.
Anyway, so Dr. Bruce Alexander, he sees a different side to the people who are struggling. He sees it like they're just everyday humans like him, and they experience something rough, but they have hopes and dreams and wishes and people that they love and families that they care about. And so he started researching, and he found obviously this rat in a cage. So the original rat experiments that the majority of our society in the United States and really in the entire world understands what we think about addiction is very simple. You put a rat in a cage and a water bottle that's got heroin or cocaine in it, and they drink it and they compulsively use, right? Dr. Alexander says, you know what? Let's try something different.
Well, so he's like, rats don't live in cages alone.
Right. So he and his team, they do these experiments, but they build a rat park, which is like heaven for rats, right? They've got all these balls, and they've got the little wheels, and they've got all kind of different food bowls everywhere, lots of cheese, lots of friends. They can
other stuff than drugs.
Correct.
Yeah, other stuff than drugs. They can have, fun with their friends if they want to. They can socialize. We got kids.
Yeah,
here,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like a rat party.
They can do rat things.
They can do rat. We'll do what rats do.
They do rat things, right? And so what they found, and in Rat Park, they have regular water and they have the heroin water or the cocaine laced water. So they have both. And what they found is that in Rat Park, when the rats have other things to do and healthy and connected lives, and they can socially interact, they don't want the drugged water, right? You go from a 100% overdose death rate when they're isolated and alone to a 0% overdose death rate when they have community. And so what he hypothesized from this is like, what if the story of addiction it's not about the drug. It's about your environment. It's about your cage. And sometimes when life gets hard, our cage can turn into something very lonely. When my addiction started, to the outside world looking at me, it probably looked like, oh, she's got everything she wants, right?
An engineer,
she
just
came back from Ole
graduated.
Miss.
Yeah.
She's got this awesome job. She's doing this
Whole
work
life in
that
front of
she
her.
wanted to do. But on the inside, I was really struggling, and I didn't know how to ask for help, and I didn't know how to communicate that. I honestly didn't even really understand that I was struggling. I just thought,
Routine.
just keep going, just get to
keep
the next
swimming,
day.
keep swimming,
just
keep
swimming.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, Rat Park tells us that addiction is really, there's a whole different story to it. It's about your cage.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. But I guess my thing is there's a lot of people who get chances. Like you get plenty of chances and plenty of chances and plenty of chances. And then where does it separate between those people who never are going to get it and the people who do? Have you seen that?
Well, I believe that it's never too late for anyone.
Right. 100%. I do too.
As long as they're still breathing, there's chance for them to get better. But I do believe that the people around the person who's experiencing problematic substance use, like the people around them, like you do have to set boundaries, right? And there are chances. I think that if somebody, let's say if somebody comes in, if my neighbor steals my lawnmower because they're an alcoholic, and so I call the police, and the police come and they say, hey, this person's got a drinking problem, and I may say, well, okay, I'm not going to file charges. But then if that happens continuously,
correct,
right, there has to be some accountability and some repercussions for it. So but then again, like we're criminalizing the theft, like that's the crime that's happening,
correct,
not the alcoholism,
right.
And so I think with substances, it should be the same thing. If somebody is struggling with substances, like, let's don't worry about the substance, let's worry about the actions you're committing, right? Are you being violent, right? Are you committing domestic violence? Is it unsafe? Are you driving around making other people get in danger? I think, like, let's treat the actions
right,
kind of like we do with alcohol.
Yeah. So what is your perfect world for the root of the problem? What do we do? Where do we start this? High schools, middle schools?
I think, so this is just Angela Gets to Dream, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect world. This is a perfect world.
Perfect world. I would love to see trauma-informed schools starting at K4, all the way through college. And when I say trauma-informed, I mean the teachers, the staff, even some of the parents. Like, let's explain to them the role that trauma plays in a later on as an adult. Right. So, because if you can catch a kid who is going through a tough time at home, right, whether that's, it could be a lot of things.
And there's a ton of them.
There's a ton of them. If you can catch that at a young age and start wrapping around services with that kid, like, let's say something terrible is going on at home. Well, maybe we start giving him extra support at school and just making sure that he's got a loving environment at school. Talk to the counselors, do all the stuff that we can do to help mitigate the effects of trauma in children. I think that's one place to start. Second place to start, I think our prevention curriculum for the new generation needs to look different. Like, get rid of DARE. No more frying pan.
Yes.
I want to start having honest conversations with kids and anybody else who is around them. Let me rephrase that. I don't want to talk to kids.
Right.
I talk to them every day.
Qualified.
Just gotta throw elbows.
I would rather stand in front of 1,000, adults or lawmakers and speak to them than in front of 1,000 high schoolers.
That is that bad.
Terrifying to me.
Now, I will say it has definitely changed in our lifehood, because we were all alcohol, tobacco, marijuana. Those were the gateway drugs. Now all the kids today are vaping. Like that's the number
Yeah,
one
but-
pandemic.
It's the same
Yeah.
drug, just a different delivery.
Correct.
form.
So
Yeah.
vapes are like you can't smell them, you can't do anything with them. They're all. It's a weird thing.
It's a
man.
new technology, but here's where you're wrong. Though I'm sorry to tell you you're wrong.
Uh,
I'm going to do it so
People
nicely.
tell me
though.
all the time.
He's heard he's
they're
wrong before. You
Okay,
can
I'm going to do it nicely.
Go ahead.
believe.
You can do it, me.
Alcohol, drugs, marijuana were not gateway drugs.
Correct. I was just using that
Yeah.
term.
Trauma is the gateway drug.
Yes.
Right. So trauma is the difference between those who just experiment and those who like head down this different path.
Well, I'm sure that there's still cases of people though who like had the greatest childhoods, great parents, and still just turned out to be addicts. I think there is a chemical aspect of it too, like biologically, some people are just wired that way. I feel like now that might be the outlier, and that may be a super small amount of people, but I don't think it's always that. Some people just make bad choices.
Yeah, some people make bad choices, and some people choose the wrong coping skills.
Right.
But I would say that it doesn't always have to be like some traumatic negative. I mean, I had a wonderful childhood.
Yeah.
Like my parents are great. My extended family was always there and around me. Like it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right. What happened to me later on. Right. But I did experience some traumatic things. It was not my family's fault.
Right.
It's just life that happened. And I didn't know how to cope with that.
Maybe sometimes it's self-perpetuating, right?
Yeah.
Like if you make bad choices and you continue to make bad choices,
then
that is the trauma, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
and then you get out of, and then you get stuck in it and you're like, there's no way out of this. So you just continue to make the bad choices.
yeah. Don Mills says environment is everything.
Environment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in Angela's perfect world, I think we could talk about trauma really early with kids. And I think we could start having honest conversations about substances. And because like DARE's not going to work. We're talking about marijuana because cannabis is about to be legal.
Correct.
I mean, it's medical marijuana is legal here now. I'm sure in the foreseeable future, adult use will happen, maybe even federally. And so that messaging around drugs are bad and drugs are going to kill you, like our kids are tone deaf to that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to start having real conversations with them that say like, there are these substances out there in the world. Some of them work really, really well for medicinal purposes. Some of them work really, really well. Like Jared, if you've got a patient you've got to put to sleep and you're going to use fentanyl.
I mentioned that at your talk. That was because everybody got a chance to speak.
Tell that story.
Yeah,
I love that story.
Yeah, they were going around the room and your what's her name?
Christina.
Christina says at the beginning, like everybody will have 1 minute to speak with the microphone passed around the room. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but you will at least like get an opportunity. So everybody's talking about drugs and fentanyl keeps getting brought up. Well, I use fentanyl as a anesthetist every single day. I give it to my patients, right?
Yeah.
And so like everybody's like, and I see it on the news too. It's very
bad death.
Yeah,
bad death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very demonized substance, as it should be in the context that people are talking about it. But when they gave me the microphone, I was like, my name's Jared and I give people fentanyl every day. Like I give people drugs.
Boo that man.
Oh no.
Everybody just kind of like
it was just golden. Like
What?
we have talked about that so many times since then.
Who invited this
wonderful.
guy?
I wish I could have Jared in all the cities we go to.
Yeah, it would definitely got some looks, and I was like, no, hold on, I work in surgery. I'm an anesthetist. I was like, but I just want people to understand that what it was designed to do. It's a very potent drug that works really quick. It starts working really quick and it stops working really, really quick, which is for me what I need. I need to be able to control how long you're going to be anesthetized from this drug versus something. And I have other tools in my toolbox. If I want something that lasts a long time, that also is
depending on what surgery you're going to do.
Correct. How long and you need pain relief, how long till I want to wake you up, how long I want you up moving around. All those things matter in my world. But in the drug addiction outside of the hospital world, it's not a good thing because it is so much more potent.
Yeah. So we made the transition in our country from the kind of fentanyl that Jared uses, right, to the fentanyl that we read about and hear about on the news every night. We made that transition around 2014, 15. It's when you really started to see illicit fentanyl making its way into the United States. And then around 16, 17, it just skyrocketed. And it is here. It is here with us.
Where's it coming from?
Because of
mostly
now mostly the cartels have
Mhm.
have bought. It originally happened from China, so some labs in China figured out how to make synthetic fentanyl, and then they started shipping it to the cartels, and the cartels in Mexico, and they brought it here. Well, the cartels have, they have the technology now, so they just make it
They just
themselves.
reprocess it. Yeah.
And so, and it's not just Mexico. There's lots of countries,
Yeah.
organizations doing this. So I don't want to point the finger just
Right.
down south. It's not just you guys. Anyway, so 2015-16, we start seeing this illicit fentanyl. Well, it's here with us because of our drug policies and this crazy little thing called the Iron Law of Prohibition. So the Iron Law of Prohibition is a theorem that was published in the 50s, and it was proven true then, and it's still true today. So the Iron Law of Prohibition says that anytime you prohibit a popular substance, it does not go away. It just goes underground, where you lose any quality control and you get contamination, or you get a potency increase. Okay. So what happened is, the further that we crack down on opioids, right, we just kind of gave this whole market, the whole
big black
demand,
market,
right? All the people who were taking them, who needed them, who wanted them, we handed that over to the black market the further that we cracked down on being able to acquire them legally.
Correct.
And so that incentivized the black market to be like, oh, well, we need to innovate our technology and get the strongest opioid possible. Well, these labs figured out how to make synthetic fentanyl. And so now you can smuggle an ounce of fentanyl and make the profit margin that you could get on, a bale of heroin.
Right.
So they're just cutting it up.
Right. So it's just,
Well,
it's
no,
all about.
it's not cutting it up. It's actually more potent in and of itself. It's like the difference between drinking a beer or drinking a shot of whiskey. The shot of whiskey is going to get you a lot more drunk, a lot quicker, with a lot less volume.
But why are people dying from it now?
Well, because it's
so
not controlled, and they don't know the methadone that they were on, or the Oxycontin that they were on. They don't know the difference between taking that as a pill versus injecting it now, and they don't know how much they're getting. It doesn't come in a pharmaceutical vial.
Everything you hear on the news, it's like I don't even know what they call it. A grain of fentanyl will kill you, or whatever it is.
Right. So with heroin, the margin of error is, I don't know what. I have no idea how you measure heroin, but with heroin, the margin of error is probably, in grams. If you're
milligrams,
milligrams,
I would assume. We don't use heroin obviously at the hospital, but they all metabolize into the same thing, morphine.
Milligrams. So with fentanyl, you're dealing with micrograms,
correct,
which is tiny.
And so the margin of error is tiny, and so
like a hair follicle.
And when these substances,
this is weight. We're talking weight,
right?
Versus that width would be.
I'm talking about size. Yeah.
So when you're talking about production wise, this is not being made in some state of the art, FDA controlled, regulated laboratory, right? It's being made in
somebody's basement,
wherever it can be made, and so there's absolutely no way to make sure that the counterfeit pills that are being made do they have 1 microgram of fentanyl, or do they have 2?
And it's all over the news right now.
And then it's also too, addicts don't necessarily, you're not in your right mind, right? So you want to get as high as you can. They're not using it in a controlled setting. They're just taking as much as they can, right? And then that's when overdoses happen. as well.
So that some of that happens too. But unfortunately, what I've had since I've been doing this work, guys, I've had the incredible opportunity to meet lots of parents who have dealt with the most horrible tragedy I could ever imagine, right? They've lost their kids.
Right. It's tough.
And they lost their kids who were high school kids or college kids. And some of them were even adults who were struggling with drug use. But a lot of people, and I think the majority of the people that we're seeing who are dying are they're not long-term drug users. They're like first time experimenting.
Or just every other month, and they get the wrong pill. And
you're like college kids. That I mean, there's the counterfeit pharmaceutical market now is the real thing. Like a friend of mine works for MBN, and I was watching a presentation that he gave a couple of months ago, and he had a picture of this like fake Adderall that they confiscated that was heading for college campuses.
Mhm.
And so like not only are they making like fake opioids,
Right.
they're
Any
making
kind of
fake
drug.
They're just
Adderall,
mixing it with whatever they
just
got.
mixing it with whatever, and like it had fentanyl in it. And so there's a lot of like younger adults and teenagers that are thinking they're using pharmaceuticals, but they're just counterfeit pills. And so that's a lot of the death that we see.
It's scary, especially for young kids.
What is you talked about policy, which is the majority of what y'all do, right?
Mhm.
So do you spend a lot of time in Jackson talking to legislatures and lobbyists and stuff like that?
Yeah, we have an office in Jackson, and of course I've lived there for
Mhm.
the last 9 years before moving back here. So yeah, we spend a lot of time talking to lawmakers, but also talking to people at the local level, like lots of prosecutors and
Mhm.
judges and sheriffs, just trying to help them understand and kind of zoom out and see the bigger picture and realize that more policies that increase incarceration or increase crackdowns and criminalization, that's not going to give us the results that we're really looking for. We want to look over here, and right now we got to figure out how do we keep people alive.
Yeah.
Right. So this next session, you guys, I'm sure, will hear, if you follow the news, you're going to hear lots of conversation about fentanyl testing strips
Mhm.
and drug checking equipment. And
It seems like a no-brainer, right? Like to get that out there on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a harm reduction response that just says, hey, there's the boatload of contaminated substances out here with fentanyl, and then we don't want you to die.
Yeah.
So here, use these fentanyl testing strips. I just saw this.
Oh, so wait a minute. You're talking about giving them to the public, or law enforcement will have these?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Both. We want to make sure law enforcement has them. We want to give it out to the public. Make sure that if parents are concerned, like if parents find some crazy thing in their kid's book bag and they want to check and see what it is, I think everyone should have access to them.
A lot of times you can hear people, because that kind of falls in line in my mind, the same as like providing clean needles for people to use that are addicted to IV drugs. But then people are pushed back and say, why would we give that away for free when people who are diabetic still have to pay for insulin? Do you hear stuff like that a lot?
Well, I've heard that before too. But did you know that like where in states where they have clean needle exchanges,
oh, it works.
The majority, it works for drug use, but like a lot of people that come there are diabetics. Like they can come get clean syringes too. It doesn't. It's not just for drug users.
Well, I guess
can they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, but I was talking more about the insulin versus the needle itself. But
yeah, that came up a lot with like Narcan pushback.
Yeah.
When we were
to give that away for free.
Yeah. And so in 2017, the legislature passed House Bill 996 that allowed for Narcan to be distributed and for first responders to be able to use it, but the public to be able to use it too. And so there was some pushback then.
Yeah. Why is Narcan free and insulin?
Why is Narcan free?
Or I wonder why they can't just allow it to be sold. Because you don't get high off of Narcan, so why can't you just buy it over the counter?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And then you'd be paying for it yourself.
If the FDA if they would just like make it an over-the-counter medication, it'd be a lot easier. But it's not.
I mean, all it does is
it binds to the same receptor that the opioid would, so the opioid can't do its job anymore.
It just throws it back,
kicks it off of there.
Yeah.
So it brings people back. Yeah,
and
I don't know.
Is that's where do y'all have Narcan at? Is that still in thing, the Narcan?
So
first responders carry it.
They carry it all the time.
It's a nasal. They right.
It's a spray.
Yeah,
okay, so it's not an injection.
It can be delivered in any different methods. Yeah,
it's available in Mississippi. You can reach out to your local community mental health centers if you're here on the coast and you need it. If you're concerned that you might need it, or someone that you have a family member you're concerned about using and you want to have it in your house just in case. If you're here on the coast, you can call me or reach out to me on Facebook. It's Angela Mallette. My email is angela@enditforgood.com, and I keep it stocked at my house.
Okay,
and
wow.
So I'll make sure that you get it, but you can also get it at Singing River Services in Pascagoula, Crossroads in Biloxi, or Crossroads in Gulfport. It's here and it's available,
I'm sure.
But it's paid for through the Mississippi Department of Mental Health.
And it's just walk in Ask. No questions
I was
asked.
gonna
you
say,
got to
I'm sure
watch the
there's
video.
I'm sure there's a stigma
Okay.
associated with it though, right? I mean, some people may not care, but I'm sure that's a barrier for people as well, right? That's almost like saying I have a problem.
Right.
If you're the someone who's
The
addicted, if you
user,
have
yeah.
a legitimate reason, because some
Yeah.
people take pain medicine at high doses, like you said, a family member
Mhm.
might have cancer. I may want to get it and have it in my house if I'm giving you your cancer meds in case for some reason
Mhm.
that dose for that day,
Yeah.
you know, hits you
Yeah.
different.
Or if you're a young kid with a mom or a dad struggling or a
Yeah.
grandma,
Correct.
you can get in touch with you and you can
Yeah.
drop it off.
Yeah, Narcan's a life-saving medication,
For sure, yeah.
and we want to make sure that it's available. So anyway, next session we're going to hear conversation around fentanyl testing strips. I hope that it makes it through our legislature. All the conversations that I've had with state leaders, legislators, and even people that work for our state agencies, they seem to all be in favor of it, and I hope that it works. I hope it goes through.
Is there any other big policy issues coming up that y'all are keeping an eye on?
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about kratom
Yeah.
and what to do with kratom
Because you can
now
buy that over the
medical
counter. Yeah.
medical marijuana has passed. I don't have any experience with kratom. I don't know a lot
Some
about
people
it.
swear by it. I mean, you go to like some of these local stores and they're selling it like hotcakes.
Yeah.
And so, my thoughts around kratom obviously just go back to the policy. Like, we've had 100 years
Mhm.
of trying to outlaw substances, and every time you do it, something worse comes from the black market to take its place.
Is kratom
Yeah.
natural? What is kratom? Is it natural? Is it an herb?
Yeah, it's an herb from what I understand, but I do know that like there are some synthetic mimics of it that are
Right.
really dangerous.
Yeah. I don't know much about it.
I don't
Other than
either.
it's supposed to give you a euphoric feeling as
Well,
well.
I thought it was like for pain, like people
It
who
is.
got
It's
like
supposedly like-
injuries or something like that.
And so, my kind of opinion on kratom is just if you ban it, if you criminalize it, then what's going to take its place? And is it going to be worse? So why not look at like, are there ways to regulate it to
Mhm.
make sure that the people who want to use it know what they're buying, they know the potency, and they know where it's produced at, and they know that it's not going to damage them. So I think, to me, that makes more sense than trying to, just make it illegal, and then you don't know what's going to pop up and take its place.
We had way early in the show, like episode 4 or 5. I don't know if you ever heard of Dave Singletary that ran
Yes.
for governor. He was actually on the show. This was Roy when we got started, but he did make one kind of, I mean, I don't know, take it however you want, but he talked about legalizing most stuff on his end of it, almost everything. And he said something that I had never heard before. It may not be an original idea, but that just like you take a driver's test to drive a car, and that's a dangerous thing, get on the road.
Absolutely.
Right?
Boat,
He said
anything.
you should have to take a test for drugs, almost like a driver's test, to where at least you've been exposed to this is what they are, this is how they work, and this is what they can do to you. And then that way you can not say that you don't know about it. And then here you have this education that you've received, like almost like a license.
Here's your card.
Yeah.
Here's your card.
And I mean, I was kind of like, that's,
well,
that's
I mean,
weird.
There's something to that, Jared.
Yes,
it wasn't my
absolutely.
idea. It wasn't my
There's-
idea. It wasn't my
there's-
idea.
He's running for governor, so you can vote for
Yeah.
him.
Well, yeah. But anyway, I was it kind of took me the same way it just did you. I was like, I mean, I don't know. That's not the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
If you were going to legalize everything, because the libertarian stance on it would be that you should have the right to do whatever you want, put whatever substance you want into your body, as long as you don't commit a crime that already exists. Like you said, driving a vehicle impaired, robbing a bank, shooting someone, domestic violence. Those are all crimes that are crimes. You can't do those. But if you just sat at your house and did what you did, but we don't have enough time to debate how that plays out, over a society.
I'm going to Liberty Forum next week, and gonna have lots of these conversations with libertarians from all across the country. So I'll come back and let you know how that goes.
Well, yeah, you know how you get a group of libertarians in one room, you ain't going to get them to agree on anything.
Yeah, they ain't gonna
not together.
But I think with the legalization of marijuana, if that comes across, I think kratom would kind of fall to the wayside. I think that's just a thing off of marijuana. Am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure, but I am curious to hear. Actually, if there's anybody listening and you have experience with kratom, whether it's helped you or it's harmed you, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
I've heard
Call
horror
me.
stories, and I've heard great stories about it. It's a lightsaber, have my back pain, and then I've heard, well, I got just as addicted off of kratom as I was off of whatever.
And,
you know what I'm
most
saying?
drugs are like that.
Right.
You know?
I have absolutely no experience with it during, my day. It wasn't around.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess it's the same thing with heroin and methadone, right? You give people heroin. I mean, they get off heroin, they get on methadone.
Correct.
They get addicted to methadone. Now they're addicted to methadone.
And that was one thing we kind of touched on, but maybe didn't articulate the greatest way, was that a lot of that market that you described, that the black market filled, the opioid addiction, came from people writing Oxycontin prescriptions and telling the public that it was non-addictive. There's a whole Netflix series. I don't know if you've watched it. I haven't seen it yet. I heard it's amazing, but that Big Pharma completely lied to the FDA, and they were, complacent in it or whatever. And they created all of these, people who were addicts now, who legitimately thought they were getting medicine from their doctor that was not going to do that.
Black farms and all that stuff.
Versus the person who was just out on the streets like, I want to get high, so I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like the difference between how they became an addict because of something they thought they were doing correctly. And then that's where your fentanyl and all this is trying to fill that void now.
Yep.
So
all true.
Now, how do you feel about those? Like the prescription, I guess the guys, who are writing those prescriptions and giving those out to people who don't need them. You know what I'm saying?
Funny how that's legal and other things aren't, right?
Right. There's a great Macklemore song called "My Dope Dealer Was a Doctor."
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
So I think that the pharmaceutical companies certainly have they need to answer to the United States of America for the role that they played in predatory marketing.
It's dollars and cents to them.
Right.
Well, they just pay the fine and keep going.
Yeah, that's dollars.
It's part of the budget.
Yeah. And so Big Pharma did play a role, but that's not the whole story.
Correct.
And so we can I worry about people just getting stuck at that. Like, it was their fault. So we're going to find them some money, but we're going to keep our policies all the same. And we think that things are going to get better, but like they're not. Big Pharma's going to pay the money. Right. And that's
going.
They're just going to keep going, and that's fine. But what we see now in our country with massive amounts of people overdosing, addicted to drugs, and our prisons bursting at the seams, literally, like that will not change with Big Pharma paying this money.
Correct.
That's not going to change until we do some serious rethinking of what our laws
They're
are.
taking up resources too that could be directed towards like violent offenders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People who are really causing, major problems too. So, Angela, where can we send people? What you mentioned the event coming up in Jackson, is that correct?
Natchez.
So,
yeah.
It
was North Mississippi.
Ride. The Natchez Trace Parkway. You ever been there?
Oh, yeah, a time or two.
You can't go with what, 20, 35 miles an hour?
50 miles,
50
an,
miles
hour,
an hour.
And they will shut you down.
They will arrest you.
Yeah,
they will arrest you for
doesn't
going.
sound like a fun place.
Yes.
So we will be in Natchez on December 1st during another community discussion there. And that will be our last one for the year. And then we'll be getting geared up and figure out like what 2023 is going to look like. We're going to have a big statewide conference in 2023. We've got some other fun events coming up. But if you want me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the places. It's Angela Mallette. I'm easy to find. And you can check out End It for Good's Facebook page or our website. It's www.enditforgood.com. And if you're a great nerd like me, you can go watch
Super nerd.
You can go watch a TED Talk by Christina Dent, our founder. Christina is the founder of End It for Good, and she did an awesome TED Talk talking about this and her experience as a foster parent in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's a really good TED Talk. I've watched it. It's worth checking out for sure. What about anybody that's listening to this, maybe that knows somebody or is personally struggling with addiction? Where do you send people to get that first, outstretched hand for help?
Yeah, it just starts with a phone call. Give me a call. Shoot me a text on Facebook Messenger, whatever I can. I'll, hear what's going on. We'll connect you with some treatment centers, connect you with some people who can navigate that for you, connect you with, whatever it is you need.
And everything is confidential, right?
Oh yeah.
Is there
Absolutely.
any other organizations that you recommend, like a national hotline or anything like that?
Yeah. So the Department of Mental Health crisis line is, let me just look it up for you.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot.
Oh, I have it saved in my phone, but I just can't spit it
Yeah.
out. Crisis line. DMH crisis line this is for the Mississippi Department of Mental Health. It is 1-877-210-8513. And that is, they can also triage you, connect you with treatment centers, connect you with detox centers, or emergency rooms or crisis centers. So that's a great place to start.
I love it. Thank you.
And you brought us goodies.
Oh yeah, we got it real quick
so-
before that. I forgot.
Yes, shout
This
these
is-
goodies out.
This is from Lounge Nursery at
Ooh, I knocked
the
the
Scarlet
magazine over.
Pearl. We've got some tarts. We've got
Pull one out there, Joe. Let's take a bite.
Oh,
Shit, come on, you gotta try.
I'm
it.
trying to be on
It's
a
rude.
diet.
It's
I mean,
rude.
It is.
Look at this banana pudding.
This is a cannoli.
Got a
Crack that in half.
cannoli.
I'm
There
ready.
you go. Take that
Oh
big
wow,
guy.
look at that. Show the camera that. Look at that thing.
Look at this, girl. We eating over here. You ain't getting none of it.
Stella's like, where's mine at?
All right, where was that from again?
Lounge Nursery
my
at the
God.
Scarlet Pearl.
Dang, Scarlet Pearl. Big shout out to y'all.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
definitely put a smile right on my face.
Yeah, Nisha P was the lady that was there tonight, and she took care of me. She got all this put together for you guys.
Well, thank Nisha.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Nisha.
Keep going, bro.
Good.
Thank you.
That cannoli is unbelievable.
That was very good, very hospitable. We appreciate
Absolutely.
your kindness. And man, I'm going.
Anything we can do for
Ate
you,
the whole damn thing.
anything we can do as far as getting in contact with y'all, find us on
Mhm.
the website. It's awesome what y'all are doing.
Yeah,
for
keep
sure.
us in the
Thank
loop
you.
on your events too. We can share them out, or
We will.
have you back at
Maybe
any moment.
I'll come back after session, and we can do a recap.
That'd be great.
Absolutely,
What we're
and tell
looking
us what you learned
Yeah.
That'd be great.
or what
Let's do
you said, what you put down.
All right.
Let's do it.
Well, look, thank you for your time. Thanks everybody for watching on the live and on the replay and listening in. And where'd my mouse go? Can't end
Got
it.
no mouse. Oh, did batteries die?
I don't know. Let's see. I got this one right here.
You want to tell your joke?
Got no mouse. Yeah, tell us a joke, girl. Come here.
Oh, she
Come here.
changed your mind.
Come
We
on,
cracked-
girl.
She
Come
said
on.
no.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you on the next
No,
one.
hold on. We got her. We got to come back.